Hello, everyone. My name's Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy artist, and today we are painting this beautiful scene. It's actually on a lake in Michigan. This is from a picture that I took with a family vacation. So I made a little painting out of it in a painting kit. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this today. But I want to give you a little visual of this first. This is the inspiration that we'll be painting today. So I'll have this off to the side here, and in just a moment, we're going to be switching camera views so that you can have a nice close-up look. But I always like to say hi first from my studio to give you a look at where I work. So it's very busy around here. Lots going on, as you can see behind me. But let's go ahead and look at the traceable. So I have these awesome painting kits that I do. I work really hard on them, and I make sure that you have all the supplies that you need, everything but water and your bucket of water. But everything else that I use to create the painting comes with the kit, so you don't have to shop or try to figure out what to buy. So this is the line art that I made to go with this, and your canvas will be a 9x12 canvas panel, ships really well, and transfer paper, and then the line art here. So let's talk first about how to get this position. So basically what I like to do is just the transfer paper will just be centered on the canvas, and I only tape up at the very top and secure that first. And then I do the image, in this case, is just right in the center of the canvas. And again, only tape up here at the top. And I leave the sides free and clear. That way I can lift up and check my work while I'm doing the tracing. That way you can make sure you get all the details in and you're completely done, because once you lift off, you're not able to ever line it up exactly. It's just nearly impossible. So you want to make sure you get all that detail done before you remove this. And then when you do start to trace, there's a pencil that comes with the kit. You'll basically just draw right over the top of each line. That will make an impression on the canvas, transfers it, and it'll look just like pencil, basically, when it goes onto your canvas. It'll be very light. I also have a permanent marker that comes in the kit. I like to hard line my images. To me, it makes it easier for beginners to keep all of their hard work with the trace in place, because you can do light washes over the top and then it bleeds through in those first stages. And then that way, it just allows you to have a little bit more flexibility in terms of your, you can do nice light washes over it. It helps your hand flow over the shapes, especially when you're creating the sky and those movements. And if you're having to do really intricate cut-in work, it really limits your freedom with the strokes. So to me, it gives you that opportunity to just kind of be more free and allows for more human imperfection, if you will. And so it really helps beginners out a lot. Just years of doing this has shown me that it's a nice little trick. Now, if you're a little bit more advanced and you just are a purist and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm too good for the Sharpie. Well, that's fine. So you can just leave it as a pencil and a sketch, and it's very light, and then that will help you in the ways that you'd like to be helped. But for this class today, I'm going to go ahead and teach with that hard line. So I did go ahead and go over every single place where that image transferred. I went ahead and did a hard line with my Sharpie here. So, all right, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and switch camera views, and there we go. I need my keepers to see these little controls. So, switch. Here we go. All right. Ta-da. Or, oops, we're getting there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I can remove this since I'm done with all my tracing. Straighten up a little bit. I'm checking my monitor view just to kind of keep things tidy. All right. Okay, so the paint that we're using today is Royal and Langnickel. It's really wonderful paint, good quality. We're doing this whole kit. This will come in your kit. And I'm trying to use up some that I've been working, I always get more than one use out of the painting kit, so. You can see on this one, there's a lot of fullness to each little tube, so I'm gonna try to use up what I've already got opened. And then let's go ahead and introduce you to your lovely family of brushes. We have our mama brush, and then we have little buddy, and then we have little bit. And then, of course, this is your pencil and your permanent marker that we used for the transfer process. I'm gonna go ahead and leave these over to the side, give us a little bit more room. And then I've got a couple of little plates that come with the kit here. And got a little, I've been painting already, so I've got a little bit of a start here with some titanium white and some Mars black. And you always want to make sure you've got your water out. And you have a little apron in your kit too, if you want to use that to protect your clothing. Otherwise, you could just go for it and look like me and have paint on your pants, which is also a fun little look. All right. So let's see here. We're going to go ahead and get started with our background sky here. So again, I've got my titanium white already out. Let me give you an example. This one's been out. I also need some primary cyan. And we'll get a little pea-sized amount of that. And then we're going to grab some primary magenta. A little pea-sized amount of that. And then I want some primary yellow. Ooh, that's what I want to show you. So when they're all brand new, they have this silver foil liner on them. So you have to lift that off. We're going to do a little size amount of that. Also grab a little bit of violet. This will almost look black. It is violet. And a little white to it if that gets there. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put my mama brush into the water here. And so it's nice and flexible, just moist, because sometimes when they're brand new, they can be a little bit stiff. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna start to do a little bit of some mixing here. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of that primary cyan blue, a bit of that white. That is super lovely. And then here's that violet. I'm gonna do a little tiny touch of that. See, that almost pulls it to like a periwinkle. It's really pretty. I'm gonna start to sweep this across the sky. And strokes here. Long horizontal strokes. And a little bit of water to this too to help make that paint a bit more fluid, really helps it flow into the pores of the canvas, the texture. I grab a little bit more white, and sweep that across right onto the canvas. That allows that white to just be a nice little cloud highlight over the top. Very light hand has very light pressure. So be careful to just not, you don't want to bear down too hard. Just light strokes here. Sweep this across. We're alternating now in nice horizontal strokes between that beautiful primary cyan blue, a little bit of that violet, a little bit of white. So that's that nice dusty color that comes across the top. And then I go into just pure white. You can see the pure white on the corner. And I'll just lightly graze right over the top, side to side. Nice horizontal strokes here. Start to pick up a little bit more white. Side to side. It's like a little bit of that cloud cover just kind of straight in the sky. All right, now I want to go ahead and do a little touch of the primary magenta. We'll just work that blend right in to the canvas. No pre-mixing. We don't want to muddy it. We want it to be very vibrant. So we're going to push this into that. Streak it across. You can see how that sky is really starting to look super beautiful and bright. Again, just side to side. And I'm going to go ahead and rinse out a little bit. I want to remove this lavender color from my brush because we're going to start to pull in some of these bright yellows, and the bright yellows play beautifully with the primary magenta, but with the purples and the blues, not so much. It'll become kind of muddy. So I want to clean up, rinse off, and we're going to start to work in just some white into that primary magenta. We're going to take it to more of like a beautiful light pink. We're going to work this all the way across. Then we can start to pull in some of that beautiful primary yellow, and it's gonna play beautifully with the pink and the white. So it stays vibrant, and then even when it does mix with that pink a little bit, it's super beautiful. See how pretty that is? Really nice. So make sure that they play together. And then you're going to start to understand why I love to do the hard line. So, because I can just do a paint through and it's a wash, and guess what? My image stays intact, and I need that to happen. So this allows me to have that freedom to just sweep across that sky, because that is a hard move to do if you're trying to, you know, all of a sudden you have to stop that beautiful stroke and then you're having to do this tedious little cut-in work. It just makes your brush strokes really choppy, and it's just a lot more challenging. So this look is beautiful and allows you to really just be relaxed and take that stroke all the way through the canvas. A little bit more white here. Take this across, and there it is. There's my beautiful little cloud. You can see how that just looks like beautiful clouds coming through there. Continue to just push this all the way through. Looking for it. Okay, so a little bit more yellow, and there's still like a little tiny touch with that primary magenta, and you can just sweep that in too if you just want to have a little bit more of that intensity of that pink in there. Grab a little bit of water, it's a nice light wash over our frames here. Then I'm going to increase the intensity of my yellow around the sun. So I'm picking up a little bit more of that yellow as I go. I miss it. So primary magenta. So I have a lot of family up in Michigan, the Byron, Michigan area. And one of my favorite places to visit there, Holland, Saugatuck, just extraordinary. Michigan, I really feel like is the best kept secret. A lot of people just don't know how pretty it is there. They have sandy beaches, clear aquamarine water. You can even look for little seashells, because their lakes are just extraordinary, and just people don't know. It's amazing. All right, I've got a little bit of this primary magenta that I'm going to start to work into this little shape here. So just keep it going across. Into this little that line. intensify that. Get a little bit of water. I'm getting a little bit of white peekaboo with my canvas. So I can immediately solve that issue that I showed you. So white peekaboo. Teeny amount of water. This is going to flow right into that. Even if it's a white wash, at least it's completely covered. And then you can come back in and kind of build up your layers. So I want the intensity of this primary magenta. And I'm going to go back and forth a little bit with the yellow. Actually, I'm going to lighten that up. So I'm going to rinse out again. Dry off. Let's pick up a little bit more of that, just pure yellow. I'm going to drag that back and forth. A little bit more of that rich, intense primary magenta. I want to be a little bit thicker in here. That drags across. And then I'm going to go back into my violet here. That's a very cyan blue. This is how we're going to obscure that hard line. You should probably like, Tipsy, how am I going to get rid of that hard black line? It's crazy. Well, just like this. So a little bit of violet. Just underneath it. Right there. Have to be a bit more careful. A little bit more of that violet in there. And of course, this line we want to stay because that's a fence. So I've got my violet, and then I'm going to do a teeny touch of the primary cyan blue. Softly fade underneath. Okay, and then we're going to rinse out here. We're going to come right back in with a little bit of that primary cyan blue. And we're going to come in over the top of that nice soft fade, over the top of that violet. Soften that pink up the top. Wild pepper comes through. It's really beautiful. It's a beautiful sky. Okay, so a little bit more of my primary magenta. We're going to do soft, gentle touches with that. I want it to be a bit more textural and pop out over the top. So you can see we still have all our shapes in place, but we've made a beautiful sunset sky here. So it's lovely. And this represents like there's a little mountain off in the background. I should have mentioned that sooner, sorry about that. But this is kind of back there. That's what's happening. All right. So we rinsed out, dried off. Now we're going to come in with our beautiful water. And I want this water to pop a little bit more here with some color. So I'm going to be using some Viridian. This has a lovely, let's do a little pop of that Viridian over here. Think in terms of this is pretty generous amount of canvas here. So, let's think nickel size dollop on that. And we're going to start to mix our titanium white with our Viridian and our primary cyan blue. You're going to get this absolutely gorgeous turquoise And then you still have a little bit of that beautiful Viridian to work with too, if you want to add some, darkness, like shadows and the water, that kind of thing. Same with the primary cyan blue. You want to keep some of that area of colors still there to kind of touch into and play with just a little bit. All right, so we're going to start to sweep this underneath. Sweep this across. Primary cyan blue, Viridian, and our white. We're going to go ahead and sweep this across. We're going to obscure that hard line. And underneath the paint, it just becomes a shadow. So see, it really doesn't obstruct what we're trying to do here, which is super quickly. It's just going to be your little secret. Now I've got, I can add a little bit of water. I just want to make sure this coverage in here can be quite opaque. So sometimes you can run into a wash that can actually add a little bit more water. I don't want to cover up my trace, and you can see I'm starting to lose, like, where's my work? When I lose it as a beginner, it will freak you out. Like, oh no. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have a lot of water in that so I can still see. I'm going to do a little scrape here. Just so, okay, now I'm good. See, look, your little boat's back. It's all good. You can see it. So how I achieved that wash was that I just added a lot more water to my paint. I kind of just lightly go through that area so that I can absolutely fill the space with that beautiful color. But then it's got that water in it, and that way you don't lose your line work, all that tracing that you did. That's really important to be able to see. And then when we get done at the end, we're going to go back over our black and make sure that it stays in place. Just add a little bit of water to that to make sure we clean that up. Real quick here though, I'm going to do a thin little line of this and take my little bit brush. I'm going to do a little twirl, then kind of dry that off. We're going to go to that same color. And then we have a little line of this through here. And then a soft little line of this in here. I'm going to add a lot of water to this to make it more, almost like a watercolor consistency. And I'm going to do a thin little line across. A little water into it. Always clean off your brushes when you're done using them, because this is acrylic paint. It can set up and dry very quickly, and then you don't get them, you'll have sticks instead of brushes, and that's just sadness right there. So take good care of your brushes, wash them out, and you'll have long lasting brushes. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of water here. Just continue on. Yes, so primary cyan blue, Viridian, and our white. Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and sweep this across. Lighter on this side, so sweep it from white. Now the color of the water in Michigan is very aquamarine, as I mentioned. This particular inspirational piece is showing a much more muted look. So if you do like the look of that, you can certainly add in more of a gray color by just adding a little bit of black to your white, and then that will definitely subdue that color quite a bit. So I'm going to give you a little example here, a little bit of black. That mutes it dramatically. So you can see how adding that gray in will definitely mute that. So if your color scheme in your home is a little bit more muted, then you can certainly add a little bit of that gray. See how that's softening it, making it a bit more dull. You can certainly do that too. If you want it to be a bit more vibrant, then you can do that. Sometimes you're just trying to match the aesthetic of your home, and so it just depends. More, sometimes it's more about that than it is about necessarily making it look like that particular photo or reality. So you can just do what looks good in your house. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue to sweep across. I did a little touch of meridian, and we're going to go back in with our white and our primary cyan blues and our meridian, that whole mix of that turquoise. We're just going to sweep this across. And here in a little bit, we're going to start to work in some of those like lights on the water. Just going to get this worked in here. First, this is my white, primary cyan blue, meridian. This across. And you can pick up a little bit of water that will help that canvas receive the paint, help that paint flow to that surface. And remember, you can dip into pure color to get a little bit more darkness in certain areas as you're sweeping this across. That's looking really beautiful. Okay, so I want to add a little bit of come in with a little bit more of that primary cyan blue. And I'm going to keep mine kind of vibrant. So you can make it more dull by adding a bit more black to it. That'll kind of bring it more of a slate quality. If you want to make it more vibrant, then you can just stay with this. Right. So you can, okay, so let me go back. So to keep it really bright and vibrant, stay with your brights, which is your primary cyan blue, your meridian, your white. If you want it to be a bit more muted, more slate, then bring in that black and it will immediately dull it. So I'm going to be doing this sweep back and forth like this. And it's going to be a lot of that primary cyan blue. And basically we're just kind of creating that little shadow that comes underneath this little lighthouse. Just kind of sweeping this. And when we get to the end of the stroke, like this, we kind of lift off with a light hand. And with the heaviest concentration of the darkest blue to be just right in through here. So again, really light hand. And as we get farther and farther out, it kind of tends to spread wider. Okay. Go a little bit wider with our stroke. All the way to the base here. Work that back and forth. In that dark color. One here from the side. Side strokes in here. And then we can sprinkle a few more. And I'm going to get a nice little soft blend back into it, so I'm gonna go ahead and go in for a little more of this turquoise that we had initially, and I'm gonna kind of sweep that into that color. Again, that turquoise that we had, which is our viridian, our primary cyan blue, and our white. Work that gently into that. Little touches of white over the top too are still just really lovely. So you can have little bits of white that still just kind of rest right on top gently. You don't have to blend them in. They can just continue to just rest gently on the top. So blend here into it. And then we have a little bit of a shadow here underneath. I'm gonna do a little bit of this primary cyan blue, our little bit brush. Let's grab a little bit of water. There's a twirl in there. A little bit of black. And we're gonna make that little shadow. Coming into the water. The white. And lighten it up just a little bit. And then just so the eye doesn't get too confused, I'm going to go into pure black. Let's do a little twirl into that with our little bit brush. A little bit of water in that mix. And I'm going to go ahead and blacken the little sailboat here. So we know where our boat is. And the brown one that they just okay, so now let's go ahead and do a little bit of a shadow underneath. Any amount of shadow underneath the boat here. Just little tiny. Just kind of wiggle the brush, the head a little bit of that darker primary cyan blue. Kind of wiggle it back and forth. Go wider out as we get out to the sea. And then rinse out a little bit here, just clean up a little bit. Dry it off. And then we'll continue working back in. I need a little bit more out of primary cyan blue. The jacket is warming up in my studio. We had snow on the ground here, which is ironic considering what I'm painting. And now it's going to actually warm up today to be about 50 degrees, and it's all melting. So it's coming into the studio. It's quite lucky. All right, so I'm gonna do a little touch of that primary cyan blue, Meridian, and the white. Blend back and forth into it a little bit. sweep that. I'm gonna need some blue again, just right across. I need a little bit of that wet to wet paint. So my background I kind of set up and dried, so I need to come back in with that softer white underneath, and then I can come back in with that primary cyan blue right over the top. And it has that nice soft blend as it pulls down. To rinse out. And then we need, I do a little bit more of this primary magenta here. A nice little soft layer of that. Over that line. Re-wet that. And then just underneath this, I'm going to be pulling in some of that primary yellow. We're going to sweep that across because we have that beautiful sun that is shining over the water. White to this, right, a little bit of water. Coming around that shadow there. A little bit of white, a little bit of yellow. Sweep this down. Do the water here. White, yellow. Keep sweeping that down. Let's do a bit of water here too. A little bit of that turquoise. And you can have, I'm gonna do a few little dusty strokes of this bright sun. It's kind of coming, shine its light over the rest of the water here. Just a little bit. Bit more of that white and that turquoise. So softly go back. Notes of that primary magenta. Little tiny soft rags. And some of that's just to taste too. I mean, if you don't like as much of that, you can keep yours a little bit more. That beautiful turquoise. It's kind of depends. Explore universe. Touches of white. Sweeping that across. Turquoise. It's kind of softly blended. Light little touches. You can also let some of that texture of the paint just kind of rinse right on top of. Leave little chunks of it. Pushing in a little bit more of that primary side, leave that little bit of shadow underneath. Shadow. Leaving kind of little chunky amounts of it too. Light little touches on the canvas. Very pretty. But let's go ahead and start to deal with our little sailboat here. All right, so I've got my little bit brush. Sure it goes into the water a little bit, does a little twirl. And we're gonna do some of our pure white. And you can make yours a little bit of a light gray too if you want a teeny amount of black to it. But you want to make it mostly white so that that black is just a little bit, just barely soften it to the lightest of grays. So we're going to go ahead and work this into the sailboat. So to you, that probably even just appears white, but there is a teeny amount of black in there. Work that into that. Get a little bit more of a fine point. A little bit more of that darker gray right in through here, just a little bit of a shadow. Little vertical pulls up into that wet white paint. Darker charcoal gray, do a little twirl into that. It's just right underneath the line of that, right through there. And we're going to do a little touch of that dark charcoal gray right over the top of the boat here. And then let's do some more of that dark charcoal gray. And then we're going to fill into this little shape here. Just like that. A little twirl, we get a nice fine point, and we're going to go ahead and work right into this little area. We get a little bit more water so that I get a finer point here. Circle. So line, just gonna paint right over the top of that dark charcoal gray. Here my canvas here, again, more dark charcoal gray. I'm gonna come in over the top of this little landing. Paint in over the top of it. A little bit of black. So a little bit of that dark charcoal gray. Don't forget to kind of twirl your brush into that paint. Charcoal gray too. That's a nice little bit of texture. Now we can start to do that little fence that comes down. So you definitely want to have that nice little twirl. It's a nice little point, and then you can do that little fence. Each one of these little posts. All the way down. Much more of that dark charcoal gray, blend that over the top. It gives it a little bit of nice texture. Come back in horizontally, across the bottom of it. All along this little area here. Turn that up. And a little bit of that lighter charcoal gray to softly go over each one of those, and just kind of does a little bit of a light texture to it. Light drag across the top here. Tap, 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 more texture in that lighter gray. Light taps. Texture. It'd be pretty. Now we're gonna go ahead and work in this little bit of shadow here. Like a little warning in the distance of the door. Charcoal gray right there, just a little sweep of that. And we're gonna grab a little bit more white. This is more by that much lighter gray here as we interpret it from a distance. So maybe a little bit light, kind of sketchy in there. Not too precise, a little bit more impressionistic, and it kind of has a little bit of that pure black now. Do this little. That little area there. That's all over this. Shadow here. Ouch. Away with that. And the gray. That here. soft curve. I guess I could do a little parentheses. Do a little soft right, boom, boom, right there. Something like that. Right. Vertical strokes. And then a little bit of some cadmium red in it. Rinse it out. Let's grab a patch of black with our cadmium red. We're gonna make this like a darker kind of crimson. And a little primary magenta to kind of cool that off even more. Pull that brush more over to the side to get a more finish. And pull it more like a pencil to do the tinier little cut in work. Black, and a little shadow, sweep of a shadow there. And we're gonna add just a little bit of an accent, that crimson just running through here. And then running through here. So a little bit of water, because I've got some peak moon that flow. Black shadow here. Like this. Sure with that line. Highlight. Butter, right? It's so pretty. We really need to deal with sun over here. All right, so I'm gonna take a little bit brush and I'm gonna grab a little bit of this white and we're gonna go ahead and work it into this shape. Carefully go into that circle. And initially, it'll kind of dig into the canvas a bit because you're holding it like a pencil to get that precise little curve. And then you can turn your brush a little more over to the side. We're gonna feather out those strokes. Turn that brush now over to the side, kind of softly. Feather those strokes out. Now what when I paint just rest right on the surface. Yeah. So now we're gonna come back in and need some more. We'll grab some primary yellow. So we're gonna turn here. And let's grab a little cabinet too. Go into both of those. Okay. Next. And we're going to start to round that, a bit of an overpaint around it, just slightly, so that it's a soft transition between the two. Sweep it back and forth. And then you want to kind of gradually pull that, feather that stroke out to the side. And there's a little bit of that. Going to come, it's going to softly feather and overlap over that white here too. Yep. An overpaint. So it softens that. And you can come back in with a little more white and work it the other way too. So you're gonna like come back in with more of that white. And we're gonna create a little more transition, soft texture between now that yellow and the white. Okay. So get more of that green color. Soft little, almost like little soft half circle curves around that. Texture with it too. That's beautiful sunshine just gonna spread through the sky. Feather that out. And then down here, we need to softly blend in that hot pink again. So I'm going to come back in with that primary magenta. You're going to softly work into that really pretty cadmium yellow, bright primary yellow. You soft little over paint, and it'll softly kind of blend in. That's really kind of helps with this. And then softly in to that circle. Primary magenta, do soft little strokes over the top. I work in chunkier sections of that primary magenta. Second coat, work in chunkier layers of that. Those around that shape. And I work into that thigh as well. Then we're going to come back in and soften that. Look at that. The white cadmium yellow. Primary yellow. I'm going to come right back. And they all play really well together. They stay very pretty and bright together. So as they're working back in, touching each other, they actually still stay a really bright, pretty shade. And that's important because sometimes when we start to mix colors together, they can be kind of cloudy, but in this case, they do. That's really good. So little touches of that yellow. There's like little tiny dash strokes of color in here. And that's definitely a fun impressionistic style to where you can just do little dashes of color. And they're just softly blending together. You have a soft fade between the two. Maybe magenta down here at the base, next to the water. That texture matches a little bit more with the thickness of texture that we've been doing. That primary magenta. And then I'm going to bring back in a little bit more of that. This is our violet in here, but I put a little white to it. But really looks more like purple. So that blends really pretty with this primary magenta as well. So I kind of crisscrossed strokes of that lavender. And then that'll softly fade in with that primary magenta. Use a little of this cadmium red as well. And just do a little bunch of that in here. Crisscross. And then those strokes back and forth, and then we get the back. Crisscross of the texture. Stroke. Right. I'll cover in there. Just checking now to make sure that all the spots I want to get done here. I'm going to continue a little bit of that. And touching a little black. I give a little black texture. Just kind of sprinkle this base. Just kind of laying on the flat side of the brush here. Just create a little bit more texture. Touches of that in here too. There, so touch. And have it rest right on top. A little bit of light gray. Touch of that. So think we are done. This has been really fun, very beautiful painting. Again, this was inspiration here, but it's looking beautiful. And it's very bright, beautiful sky with a gorgeous sunset, very vibrant water. And so, yeah, I think we'll call it quits. But I love it. It's beautiful. And I hope y'all have fun with this. And then our last touch will be just to sign it. What I recommend here, you can sign it with your paintbrush if you want to. If you do that, you use your little bit brush, you do a little twirl into the paint, and you just sign your masterpiece like that. But what I really recommend is using your little Sharpie. Only trick is you have to make sure that you're completely dry here, let it completely set up and dry, and then you can sign with your Sharpie, and that gives you a lot more precision, helps you have a much tinier little font when you go start to do your signature. All right. So we are done. Thank you again so very much for painting with me today. It was a pleasure. And all the supplies that you need to go with this are on our website at tipsyartist.com. Y'all have a beautiful rest of the day. Much love. Toodles.